Welcome to Building the Future. I'm your host, Kevin Horick. You can check out new episodes of the show every Tuesday and Thursday at 2 p.m. If you missed an episode or want to get more information about the show, please visit buildingthefutureshow.com. Welcome back to the show. Today we have Jerry Slutzky, co-founder and president at Moxie Sports. Jerry, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on the show. I think what you guys are doing is really interesting and kind of much needed, actually. I played sports growing up, and I have a bunch of friends that still do, and I do some from time to time. So I think it's interesting, and kind of why I wanted to have you on the show is because I think it makes a lot of sense to kind of cover what you guys are doing.
Sure.
But maybe before we get into that, let's cover your background and kind of where you grew up.
Yeah, so I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay.
My family was a family of a bunch of sports fanatics. My mom, my dad, and my two brothers are always heavily involved in sports. So naturally, I would join the family crest, I guess, if you want to call it that. But played baseball my whole life. Fell in love with it really, really early. So I jumped in at 5 years old and just that was my thing. That's what I wanted to do my whole life. And so that took me through the whole amateur process, the travel baseball, traveling all over the country, all over the world a little bit. And so I definitely wanted to take that into college and played college ball down in Mobile, Alabama at the University of South Alabama.
Okay.
And
so why Alabama, just out of curiosity?
A couple things, right? So when you're getting recruited, you want to go somewhere where you're going to be happy, right? So when I visited Mobile, I fell in love with the city. Also, I had been in Atlanta my whole life. My mom's Mexican, so I traveled enough, but I wanted to get away, at least far enough away where I was away from home, but close enough where I could drive home on the holidays. So that's why I chose, Mobile. And so played ball, for 4 years and graduated, got my degree, and it was, I guess, a life choice. Go ahead?
No, I was just going to say, what degree did you get in?
So I graduated with a major in communications.
Okay, so what made you want to take kind of communications?
So when I went into college, I was advised by our athletic advisor to go into business marketing. Because the career path I wanted to go into was, more specifically, I wanted to make commercials for Budweiser. Right, that's exactly what I wanted to do.
Interesting.
Right? Because I just thought I loved the humor that they throw into it, and I carry that similar humor, and so that's what I wanted to do. And so I told that to my advisor, and she said, "This is what you need." And a year later, we reassess, and I'm like, "I'm not really enjoying my classes," and she's like, "You're in the wrong major." And I'm like, "You put me here." So she's like, "You need to be in communications," and sure enough, we switched over, and so that's what I graduated with. And once I had that degree, it was making that life choice of, do I pursue baseball or do I, grow up and become a big boy, I guess, right? And so, I made the decision to leave baseball. Tough one, but after that, went into your prototypical guy going into sales right out of college, and me personally, I hated it. So
what type of stuff were you selling?
It was telecommunications.
Okay.
I liked the people I worked with, hated what I was doing, right?
Fair enough.
I don't mind sales. It's more so I'll sell something if it's mine, right?
Got you. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, right. And so if I'm selling something for a massive telecommunications company, it's not mine, right?
Fair.
There's no passion behind it. So getting long here, but after a couple years, I realized I hated it, and Roman Grimaldi, my co-founder, had called me up one day with an idea.
Okay.
And I loved the idea because it tied to the world that I loved, which is sports. And so we took it and ran with it. And after weeks of trying to come up with a name, we started Moxie Sports.
Okay. So, what's the story behind the name?
So Moxie is it defines how we played. So Roman also is an ex-baseball player. Played at the University of Georgia Southern, or Georgia Southern University, excuse me. They're going to yell at me now. But
we'll edit that out.
Yeah, please. So Roman was at Georgia Southern, and the way we played was with some grit, some intensity, some moxie. Moxie is an old-fashioned word, I think, that you're starting to see come back a little bit, and hopefully with some social campaigns we'll make it come back. But Yeah, so it just defines the way we play. You need a little moxie, a little grit, a little intensity to get through the tough days, the dog days of summer. And so it was a no-brainer. After weeks of like some brutal names, we kind of came across moxie. It was Roman who came up with it. I'll give him all the credit. It was like one day he called me up. He goes, "Dude, Moxie Sports." I'm like, "Eureka, let's do it."
That's awesome. So what exactly is Moxie Sports, and why did you guys decide to finally go for it?
Yeah, so when I finished playing ball, I still wanted to be a part of the community, so I started coaching.
Okay.
And Roman as well. And so we saw that there were still major gaps in technology and how technology affected the amateur sports world, right?
I got you.
So I'll give you an example. I have a team. I need to send out practice times, game times, all that stuff for the summer, right?
Sure.
It's still email. Sometimes it's still a bulletin board post. It's just old technology. Although a bulletin post is not technology, it's just paper and a pen.
Analog.
Yeah, right. And so people were even still using phone trees, and it blew our mind. And we thought to ourselves, there has to be a better way.
Sure.
The way technology is, the way we're carrying our phones around with us every second of the day, something had to be better. And so Roman and I decided that we can do this ourselves. And so we started Moxie Sports to alleviate some of the major pain points, which is scheduling and communication with your team, with your amateur sports team. The most important thing is to make sure that everybody knows what time practice is and what time the games are, right?
Sure.
And so that started our journey. And as we grew, we started this 2 years ago, January. And as we went through our whole growth process, we discovered that teams obviously need to save a lot of money too. And we knew this, but to the extent we didn't know, right? And so
you didn't know how much they needed it.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense.
And so here recently we discovered that uniforms were a major pain point as well. Where to go to order them, how to know if I got a great discount or a great deal. And so we're working on a platform that will help to alleviate that as well. So we're saving people time and money now, which is great.
Very cool. So maybe before we dive maybe a little bit deeper on kind of the uniform side of things, what are you actually doing for the actual sports teams themselves?
Sure. So it's real simple. It's a free application. The application is Moxie Sports. So you go to the App Store and type in Moxie Sports. You can download it. What it does simply is that you're the coach. You sign up. You create a team account.
Okay.
Once you create that team account, you can now invite all of your parents and players to follow your team, much like Instagram, right? So it's a simple click follow. I accept you as the follower because every team is private, obviously.
Sure.
You have to keep the creepy people out, right?
Fair enough.
So I accept you as the follower, and once you're accepted into the team, you're going to receive notifications every time an event gets created. So if practice or game gets created, if a practice or game gets edited or deleted, you will receive all those notifications so that you know exactly what's going on, right?
Okay.
In our version 2/3, we're going to be adding one-directional messaging. And so I'll give you an example. This summer we'll be out a game. We'll have a game in the morning. We'll have a game later afternoon.
Sure.
So I can send a one-directional message saying, hey, guys, we're going to Taco Mac in between games, or hey, guys, we have 4 hours in between games. Make sure you don't go to the pool, stuff like that, and burn your energy. So that's exactly how the tool works. The beauty of ours is the syncing of your personal calendar. And so
very cool.
Most people are comfortable using what they want to use, right? Google, iCal, Outlook, whatever it is. And so our tool allows you to sync it seamlessly. You can even use the sub-calendar within your iCal that is titled Sun's practice schedule, right? Once you sync that, everything that gets input to Moxie Sports by the coach will sync right away. Technically, you don't ever have to go back into Moxie Sports once you sync.
Okay.
For coaches who have a lot of data, a lot of schedule input, we are making it a lot easier. So if you have that schedule that already exists in your Google Calendar, you simply just import it to Moxie Sports and then back out to all of your followers. So
got you.
We're just trying to make it easier because as a coach, I know I don't want to deal with that stuff. Right?
Sure. Especially if you've already imported it or inputted it once, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Fair.
Right.
That makes total sense.
We're doing the same thing with like data entry as far as like player names, uniforms, all that stuff. But that will be in the later version.
Okay.
But again, with the application, we are just simplifying the scheduling and communication process that exists within amateur teams. So, yeah. And
Sure.
so as a parent, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
As a parent, the beauty of it, if you are a parent of 4 kids that play on a bunch of different teams
Sure.
each, you follow as many teams as you want. It will help organize your hectic schedule as a parent, especially those moms out there, those hero moms who are chucking those kids around town, making sure their kids get to their practices and games on time.
Sure.
In a later version, we're adding a carpool feature so that if she can't take all of her kids, right,
I got you.
can't take all of his kids, there's a carpool functionality to it. So
Very cool.
Yeah.
So how did you guys, were you self-funded? Did you raise some money, or how did you kind of get started with this?
It was a long, painful journey, I would say. No, we didn't have, self-funded, right?
Okay.
So a little bit, right, and to keep ourselves going, but we didn't have enough to build a prototype.
Okay.
And so we started our journey of traveling across the country and selling a story.
Okay,
right? The
interesting.
story of Moxie Sports.
Okay.
And so the story was great. It was well received. The story was well received, and it just wasn't getting us the money. It was a catch-22 situation, right? You need the money to build the product. You need the product to get the money. Right?
Sure.
And so,
Which I think a lot of startups struggle with.
sure.
Yeah.
I will never say I'm the only one. I'll just definitely share my story.
Sure. No, I appreciate it. I think like it's the real story of this stuff, right? Yeah.
Sadly, right?
Yeah.
Because Roman nor I are technical co-founders.
Okay.
Right. Roman is a graphic designer, and he's a very, very good one.
Sure.
And he can code a little bit, but not enough to build a fully functional MVP.
Got
right?
you.
So it took us probably a year and a half to raise a decent enough round
Really?
to build a prototype.
So were you guys working in that year and a half outside of kind of Moxie Sports doing something else, or were you guys at that time just working on this full time?
January of 2 years ago, January, we both just committed full force to it, and so
Okay.
yeah, so we just decided to accept not making any money for 2 years, which was fine because this was something we wanted to do. And so, so for a year and a half, we hustled and we got a little bit of money to build the MVP.
Sure.
We built that MVP, and it served its purpose. That MVP allowed us to get more money to build an actual mobile version.
I got you.
And so, because in our world, everybody's on the go, right?
Sure,
So
for
we
sure.
needed the mobile. Granted, our MVP is a web app. It's responsive. It works fine.
Sure.
We needed to go mobile, and so that round has taken us to where we are now. And so we're currently raising.
Okay.
A much bigger round because we have some things we need to get done, and so yeah.
Sure. No, I think that's awesome. And I think like a lot of founders are kind of in that, right? Where
Sure.
they had to raise some money to build a prototype, then an MVP, and then kind of, you're constantly looking to build new stuff, probably raise more money. So
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. So you kind of mentioned what you do kind of on the jersey side.
Right.
Do you maybe want to dive a little bit deeper exactly what you're doing for teams in that space?
Sure. Kind of high level. But the platform is designed to help the coaches out there, or the momagers, as we call them, the business managers, who are looking to purchase large uniform orders, right?
Okay.
So you have different types of groups. You have your one-off team that's out in the middle of the country somewhere that just they're by themselves. And so they deal with either their local rep or a brand representative, and that brand representative is going to provide them what they call a discount.
Okay.
And so this coach or momager doesn't know any better, and that's okay, right?
Sure.
That's the world that we've lived in for however long. But then on the other side of things, you have a large organization who gets a much bigger discount naturally because of the bulk orders.
Sure.
And so we feel that we should take the discount that large organization's getting, increase it because they don't know if they're getting a great deal,
Sure.
and then couple in that one-off team. And so we started this platform called True Uni. And what True Uni does is it functions a lot like True Car, right? And so,
Okay.
You go, you sign up, you throw in your quote, and we'll let you know if that quote is reasonable enough.
Okay.
And then if it's not, you can go through the True Uni platform, and we will provide you the best discount you can get. And then if you choose to be a part of a group order, you can.
Okay.
So once you join that group order, your discount can actually increase.
Okay.
And so you're still going to end up no matter what route you choose, you'll still get the best deal.
Sure.
But we are pushing people to jump on those group orders because number one, everybody's going to win, right? We're going to win, the user's going to win, and the brand's going to win because the brand's getting more business out of it because that one-off team may have never found that brand.
Sure.
The team's getting a win because they're getting a massive discount, whether it be a group order or their solo order.
Sure.
And then we're winning because we're making money on the back end.
Sure. So maybe that's a good segue into kind of how are you guys monetizing this through the jerseys? So maybe let's start there and then
work our way back.
Yeah.
Sure. So it's the uniform. That's the money making play, and it's a very big money making play. So
sure.
We're looking to close down a deal with an organization, which I'll keep nameless.
Sure, that's fine.
That's one of the largest purchasers in the country, right? And
wow.
An example would be, let's just say, picking a number, they do $50 million a year in purchasing.
Sure.
And so we would help them with their orders, and we would take a percentage on the back end from the manufacturer.
Okay.
And so it's still free to the user.
Okay.
But we're making money from the manufacturer. And so it's almost like we're becoming that sales rep in the middle without having to deal with a sales rep.
Sure. And when you and I talked earlier, you made an interesting comment to me that you're basically allowing these big brands into markets that they potentially don't have a rep in.
Correct.
Or can't get to. So do you want to kind of maybe elaborate on that a little bit more?
Sure.
Because I found that kind of fascinating.
Sure. So, we've had conversations with all these brands.
Sure.
Nike, Mizuno, Under Armour, you name it. We've talked to them, and one of their biggest issues is making sure they're getting to in front of enough teams.
Sure.
Right? And so it's very hard. You have one representative that covers Georgia, for example.
Gotcha.
Right? Or the Southeast.
Sure.
Depending on the brand. And there are so many teams.
Sure.
And so
like in Georgia alone, there's got to be what, tens of thousands?
Yeah.
If not more?
If not more, right?
Okay.
And so I mean, in soccer alone, you're talking, I think it's 90,000 or 100,000 soccer players that are registered with Georgia Soccer, right? So
so just one sport alone is over 100,000. Yeah, okay.
Right, and those are just the ones that are registered. So, right, so you have your brand representative, your sales rep, who is doing his or her best to get coverage and get to everybody, but they can't, right? Because there's teams in Conyers, Georgia, that's just out in the middle of nowhere, and there's teams up in Rome that these reps aren't going to get to.
Sure.
And so what we're doing, because these teams are going to be using our Moxie Sports platform, we are taking these teams and we're aggregating and we're bringing them in front of all these brands. And so the brands have the opportunity to win over their business by providing the best discounts.
Sure.
And so instead of them getting to 100 teams, we're providing them the opportunity to get in front of 1,000 teams, 4,000 teams, whatever it is, right? Depending on the team, the sport, the order, whatever. So yeah, we're becoming a massive fishnet and pulling in all these teams for these brands.
Sure, that's awesome. So when you guys, did you guys eventually just reach out to a bunch of brands and kind of figure out that was a problem? Did you know that was a problem already, or?
We had known the problem.
Okay.
So to rewind a little bit, when we started Moxie Sports, we always had the vision of helping teams. We wanted to be a one-stop shop.
I got you.
And the quickest entry point was scheduling and messaging.
Got you.
But we knew that we wanted to do something with uniforms, equipment, etc. Right? And so we knew there was a play with uniforms, but we didn't know how. And only recently, talking to a lot of teams, talking to some large organizations, we discovered that there was a large pain point in how much they were spending on their uniforms. Where do they go to get the proper uniform? How do they get the best uniforms, right? And so we started to do our due diligence, and we started to survey a lot of our users, and then we started to hone down the concept, and we started to reach out to the brands. And so because of our background, because of what we grew up in, naturally some of our buddies move on into the sales world for the other brands, right? And so I got a buddy that works for Mizuno. I got a buddy that works for Nike. And so we reached out to these guys, and we had them either give us the information or connect us with the guy that could.
Right.
And so we were speaking to the Southeastern representative for Rawlings. We're speaking to the national sales VP for New Balance, right? And so
got you.
We're talking to everybody, and we're getting everything we can. And so that took us several months, and we finally formulated the concept for True Uni. And the crazy thing is that in talking to these brands, they were salivating over this because
really,
yeah.
Well, I guess they're filling a huge need for them, right?
Yes, right. And so they're not really losing much on their end, right?
Sure.
They're just extending the brand. If we can sell their equipment, their uniforms, sign us up.
Sure.
Right? And so, yeah, it's been great. And so that's taken us to where we are now. We're building the platform out, and that's why we're starting to raise, right? Because of this potential partner we're about to have. It's gonna create a lot of traffic. And so, yeah, we're excited, man. It's gonna be a good time.
Sure, that's awesome. So when you went to reach out to brands that you didn't know somebody that worked at that company,
Sure.
was it pretty hard to kind of get in front of somebody that you needed to talk to? Or you're like, look, I got a demand for your stuff. Like, do you want it, or I'll move to your competitor? Like,
yeah, I think this goes across every niche, every market. We tried to find somebody that knew somebody, right?
I got you.
And so I guess because of the world we lived in and grew up in, it was relatively easy. I can't say that would be as easy for others.
Sure.
And it is a relative term, right? There was some back and forths. There was some hustle involved, a lot of emailing, a lot of phone calling, but it wasn't that tough.
Okay.
We just sat down and did it, and we got the information we needed. But because of our backgrounds, I think it was a little easier than it could be for most.
Sure. But I think you kind of bring up a good point. It's like basically you leverage your network to get what you needed, and even make new connections to
Right.
get to where you wanted to be. And I think that's super useful, right? And
Right.
I think sometimes people forget about leveraging their network or trying to build a big presence online or network with people. So it's cool that you're doing that. So I'm kind of curious to know, and you've kind of covered this throughout the interview, but where do you kind of see Moxie Sports going over the rest of the year? I know you have a big partnership deal coming up.
Sure.
Is there any other things that the user can kind of expect in 2016?
Yeah. Well, I guess naturally with the audience we're speaking to, I think they understand this, but it all requires a lot of money.
Yep.
But we have a massive vision for the application, right? Because
Okay.
there's a large social element that exists in amateur sports, and
Sure.
so it existed when I played and existed before.
And probably always will exist, I
will.
think.
It
Yeah.
will. It's just somebody said the other day, it's I can't remember, so I won't misquote, but
Sure.
It'll always be around,
Yeah,
right? And
for
so what no matter what happens to the economy, sports will be there to help out. And so that social element exists, and you have Instagram and you have your Snapchat and you have all that stuff that keeps these kids intertwined, but that's blanketing every kid.
Sure.
In amateur sports, what happens is when we play in these massive tournaments that are all over the country, you have kids from all over the country.
Sure.
And they know of each other. They're connected in some way, shape, or form, but not digitally, not virtually, right?
Right.
And so with our platform, when you sign up, a profile already gets created. The profile is pretty bare bones. It's an email and a phone number. It's for contact purposes.
Sure.
But eventually we want to add the ability to upload your photos, your videos, very much like Instagram.
Got you.
And statistics.
Okay, very cool. So
And
I can see how I rank nationally.
Exactly,
I
right?
got
And
you.
so we want to add the statistics because, right, you want a peer-to-peer connection. You want to compare peer-to-peer. And so I'm a catcher. There's this catcher on the other field from California, and I know of him. How do I match up?
Gotcha.
And so eventually you take that a step farther. You gamify it because all these kids are playing their Xbox and their video
Totally.
games. And so how do I rank? I'm number one in the country, whatever it is. And so that is the path we're headed with the mobile application.
Okay.
Not to mention we combine the two platforms, the True Uni and the Moxie Sports.
Got you.
So that when a coach signs up, he taps on a menu option and he orders his uniform. So these are kind of this is the vision of the next year, maybe two, with the application. I keep telling Roman that 2016 is the year of Moxie. for 2 years we've been hustling our faces off, and I think this is the year that we're going to start to have some crazy growth. And so, that's I think that's kind of the major plan for this year. We will obviously want to launch the True Uni platform, and we're testing it here locally. And then we hope to take it national by the end of the year. And
sure.
So,
no, I think that's good. And I love that you kind of have a plan, right? Like, it's obviously maybe not 100% like laid out exactly like this month we're going to be here, this month. But I think having that vision of where you want to be, I think is super important.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that got me kind of thinking, if you're giving statistics out based on potentially the entire nation,
sure,
probably a lot easier for universities and whatnot to recruit people for their teams.
Yeah, so that's a part of the vision, right? Because I coach a 15-year-old baseball team, and that is the beginning of their recruiting process, right? And so this summer there will be every Division I baseball program, Division II, Division III, you name it, out to watch our boys. And so you always get the question. I have a great relationship with a lot of Division I baseball coaches, and so they'll come up to the dugout and they'll say, "Hey, what's this kid like off the field? What's this kid like every day? What's his deal?" Because they only see him so many times, right? And so with the goal, the solution that we're bringing to them is that they can follow these kids and kind of see what they're up to day to day, game to game, and they can validate their investment. They're making an investment just like an investor is with us, right?
Sure,
it's
very
money.
much so.
There's money involved, and so it's a 4-year investment, and the kids are making a major decision. So if we can help both sides make the proper decisions, it'd be great. It would be a huge win, and it'd be fun. I think the social side is the fun. It's the sexy part.
Totally.
The scheduling and the messaging is the nuts and bolts, right? And it solves the problems.
So how is statistics on the kids now and kind of in amateur sports tracked? Like, is it even tracked? Is it just tracked team by team? Like, how do I access somebody in California? Like, you mentioned a catcher, right? If I know this catcher, like, can I see his statistics somewhere?
There are platforms, right? And so a tournament organization that I even grew up playing in is called Perfect Game Baseball.
Okay.
They create player profiles, and they'll have numbers on the kid, but they won't have statistics. They'll have.
Got you.
I'll give you an example. They have, if he's a pitcher, they'll have velocity. If he's a catcher, they'll have arm strength behind the plate, like stuff like that. And so my profile is still on the website, right?
Okay.
And my players bring it up all the time because my 60 time was very slow, but I was running on wet grass. So, anywho, that's one option. Another option is a platform called Game Changer, and Game Changer is amazing.
Okay.
They started in baseball first, but essentially what it is a mobile version of those old booklets that parents used to keep behind home plate.
Yeah, I got you.
Ball 1, ball 2, strike 1, out, whatever it is. And so it's great. You're always going to be a victim of the dad who says that was a hit. No, and then the other guy's like, no, that's an error. And so you'll have kind of some discrepancies on actual statistics. But again, it's a great platform. It's not that big of a deal. And so statistics are gathered year by year. And so potentially a partnership with them is to help alleviate the data entry. But if not, we'll do something ourselves. So they're huge. They're growing. They were in baseball first, and they're growing into, I think, soccer, basketball, softball. They're a big tech sports company as well. So.
Sure. So are you guys, like, I guess, what sports are you in? All of them? Or is there some that you don't cover?
Well, yeah, we don't discriminate. So I think we say any group activity, you can use Moxie Sports, right? And so it's interesting because day by day I'll view the teams that have signed up, and there'll be some you'll have rugby, you'll have trying to think of like the weirdest one I've seen, but it's any team.
Okay.
Right? We left the field when you enter sport. We left the field wide open. But we do have a list that we're going to import into the application that is every sport imaginable, and it is a very, very long list. And so we don't discriminate towards any sport. We just started in baseball, so when we market, we're at a lot of baseball programs, a lot of baseball tournaments.
Got you. So are you just in America right now, or can I use this outside of North America, for example?
You can.
Okay.
I guess we're international. We have some teams from overseas that are using. I think a team in England. I think a team in Holland.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah, it is cool. When I first saw that, I was like, yeah, we're international. All right.
Totally.
The only barrier is it's in English only. So
Got you.
any of the other countries that are speaking other languages, which is all of them,
Sure.
we don't do that yet.
Yeah.
Soon. But yeah, so we specifically we try to keep it in the States, and we do all our marketing here in the States. But
Sure.
yeah, we don't stop anybody from getting it.
Got you.
The more the merrier, please.
Yeah, no, fair. Makes sense. So you kind of have mentioned this throughout the show that I'm kind of curious about. You mentioned you go to events and kind of sporting games. How else have you guys kind of marketed the platform?
Yeah, so that's something we've been kind of A/B testing for a while.
Okay.
You always get advice from people around the building, and it's always interesting to try to apply it to your niche, to your market, because it's different.
Sure.
So that being said, we're advertising to parents and kids, parents, coaches, and kids, and so the biggest success for us has been social.
Right.
But even to take that a step farther, it's the content that we're providing. And so one thing that has given us great success is our content creation and our YouTube channel that we started.
Okay.
And so we started a YouTube show called Moxie Sports Presents.
Okay.
And so what we've done with that to alleviate another pain point is provide information-rich content to all the parents and players out there, and even some coaches, right? And so I get this question all the time as a coach: how do I get my son exposed to the colleges? How do I get my son stronger? What should he be taking nutrition-wise? All these questions. I mean, everything under the sun.
Sure.
I get it. And so with Roman and I's experience, we try to answer as many as we can with our opinion, our genuine opinion.
Sure.
And so that may not be what you want to hear, and it may not be the right answer, but it's what we think, right?
Sure.
And that's what YouTube has allowed us to do.
Awesome.
Excuse me. And so the next step actually is not the next step. What we're doing is we're getting thought leaders from the community, right? And so, like, for example, we'll get the head baseball coach down at Georgia Tech, the guy, the head coach at Georgia, former players, current major league players, soccer thought leaders. I mean, you name it, we're getting these people on the program just to add to the information that we're providing. So what that has done for us is it has driven traffic to our site because they're appreciating the information they're getting. They're trusting Moxie Sports, and they find out that we are also a solution provider, right? And so we're creating the solution that just alleviates their other pain points, and they end up downloading the application and using it. And so becoming a trusted source for information that they yearn for has really kind of pointed people in our direction to download the application. So that's been our biggest success. And can't say it's our idea because you watch guys like Gary Vaynerchuk.
Sure. He's famous for that, right?
He is, right? And so the stuff that he advises works so well for our community because of the social push, right? All the kids are on Instagram, Snapchat.
Sure.
And I love Instagram, Snapchat. Those are my favorite. Facebook is more of the parent dynamic, right? And
Got you. Yeah.
Even though you and I grew up on Facebook, and when it came out, that's different now. Kids make fun of me all the time because I'm on Facebook and I have a Facebook profile. But Facebook allows us to cater to the parents.
Got you.
And so our social strategy on Facebook is designed to hit the parents. Our social strategy on Instagram and even Snapchat is designed to make those kids laugh and trust us as a brand.
Sure. I think that's actually a super important point, that you've figured out what works on the different mediums and you're producing content that appeals to the people on those mediums. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people struggle with that, right? They seem to post the same thing to all the mediums, and that's not what you should be doing.
Right.
So I think that's really good advice for people.
Yeah.
The other thing that I'm a little bit curious about, just to go back to the YouTube stuff you guys are doing, you mentioned you're getting some big name players and coaches. How have you found reaching out to those people to be on, the channel? Have they been pretty warm and receptive to it? Is it taken a bit of convincing?
Yeah, so I think the pro guys,
or do you know them? Do you have connections?
That's what it is. It starts out as the first handful will be people I know.
Got you.
So But we extend it even farther. So when we're done filming the show, for example, we'll ask them to connect us with some of their buddies.
Got you.
And
Once
so-
you get one, it kind of snowballs.
Yeah, right. And so if we
fair.
get enough views and they get enough social exposure, I think they'll jump on it because that's what they all want. They want that social element, right? And so
And giving back to the community too, right?
yeah, right. I think we ask things too that they don't get asked, daily by the MLB.com or all those guys, right?
That's
So-
actually a really good point, that you're covering stuff that they don't get asked all the time. Yeah,
Right,
that
so-
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, we're asking questions like, the kids really need the information on, but we're asking questions like, what was your path? What was the biggest key for your success? Some of these
Sure.
guys share similar stories that a lot of these kids have, and these kids don't know that because that stuff doesn't really get covered.
Sure.
And so they like answering those questions. I think they
Got you.
think it's fun, and so they're very receptive to it because it just expands their audience, and so so it's been fun, and we're taking it into other sports now. So we're gonna have some soccer thought leaders jump on board, and it's gonna be fun. Yeah, because we can't answer all those questions, right?
Sure.
Our background's baseball, so.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I think like what you guys are doing is super useful. And that's kind of why I really wanted to have you on the show, because you're building a platform in sports, but when you and I talked, you guys are doing things that, for the listener can take what you guys are doing and apply it at their startup, right?
Right.
And you guys are doing sports, but there's a lot of good advice of what you've been talking about, makes a lot of sense to do for other people.
Sure.
So I think it's awesome. And we're kind of coming to the end of this.
Okay.
But let's kind of end the show with, again, maybe giving like a quick rundown of Moxie Sports and then where people can find you guys online.
Yeah. So Moxie Sports is just it's a simple solution for teams to stay organized. You sign up, you create a team account, you invite all your parents and players, and now every time you create a practice or a game, they're going to stay up to date. There's no more excuses, right? I missed the email, I missed that text message, I missed the phone call. They are held accountable. So, and then we have our True Unity side of the platform where we're saving people their money to get the best deals for their uniform orders, their T-shirt orders, even the mom sweatshirts, right? So,
Sure.
As far as where you can find us, we're moxiesports.com.
Okay.
You can get a lot of our content there. You can get to the web application there.
Perfect.
And then we are in the iOS store currently under Moxie Sports. We are working on a Droid version to meet the needs of everybody else, like yourself.
Sure. Yeah.
And so that's where we are right now. You can check us out on our YouTube channel, Moxie Sports Presents. Subscribe.
Awesome.
More subscribers, the better.
Sure.
And then socially, you can follow us on Instagram. It's all Moxie Sports. Our Twitter is Moxie Sports Inc. And so we're working on. We've been emailing Twitter to get that Moxie Sports account.
Gotcha.
The lady that owns it hasn't posted something in like 3 years.
Oh, so they'll probably give it to you.
I would think. I hope. So
Yeah. Well, I think they were doing they released a statement or something a couple years ago that any kind of inactive accounts after a certain period of time, they were just going to let people have them again.
Right.
Because it makes sense, right? And
Right.
if you guys want to post and you're posting good content, you're not posting anything inappropriate.
Right.
You're giving back to the community. You're posting real things. You're a real startup. I don't know why they wouldn't give it to you, but
we'll see.
well, yeah.
We'll see.
Cool, man. Well, Jerry, thanks again for doing this. I really appreciate you being on the show, and I look forward to kind of following you guys throughout the rest of the year and beyond.
Yeah. Year of Moxie, right?
Totally.
2016.
Totally. Cool,
Appreciate it,
man.
man.
Well, thanks again for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll talk soon. Okay, bye. Thanks for listening. The music for the show was done by Electric Mantra. You can check them out at electricmantra.com and keep building the future.